What happens when one of Hollywood's most beloved stars walks onto a talk show set expecting a friendly conversation, only to be blindsided by a host who seems determined to tear him down? In just 30 seconds, a single comment would turn a routine interview into one of the most shocking confrontations in daytime television history, ending with a guest storming off the set and leaving an entire studio in stunned silence. Will Smith arrived at the studio that morning with his trademark smile, ready to promote his latest project and share some laughs with the audience. He had done hundreds of these interviews over his decades-long career. This was supposed to be easy, comfortable, just another day of connecting with fans. But from the moment he sat down across from Jennifer Hudson, something felt different. The energy was off. The usual warmth that filled these spaces was missing, replaced by something colder, something hostile. Jennifer started the interview with what seemed like a normal question. "So Will, let's talk about your new movie. I heard it's getting mixed reviews. Does that bother you?" Will kept his composure, smiling as he always did. "You know, I'm proud of the work we did. Not every project is going to be for everyone, and that's okay. We put our hearts into it." But Jennifer wasn't satisfied with that answer. She leaned forward, her voice taking on an edge. "Mixed reviews is putting it nicely, don't you think? Some critics are calling it your worst performance in years. How does it feel to know you might be losing your touch?" The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the playful banter they had come to expect. This felt personal. Will's smile faltered for just a moment before he recovered. "I don't think I'm losing anything. I'm still passionate about my craft. Still learning. Still growing." Jennifer let out a small laugh, but there was no humor in it. "Still growing? Will, you're not a young man anymore. Maybe it's time to accept that your best days are behind you. I mean, when was the last time you had a real hit? When was the last time you did something that actually mattered?" The room went silent. Crew members exchanged glances. The audience didn't know whether to gasp or stay quiet. Will sat there, his jaw tightening, his hands gripping the armrests of his chair. He took a deep breath, clearly trying to maintain his composure. "Jennifer, I came here to have a conversation, not to be attacked. I've had a long career, and I'm grateful for every moment of it. If you want to have a real discussion about my work, I'm happy to do that, but I'm not going to sit here and let you disrespect me." Jennifer shrugged, as if she couldn't care less about his discomfort. "Disrespect? I'm just asking the questions everyone else is thinking. You've been in this industry for how long? 30 years? 40 years? And what do you have to show for it now? A string of mediocre movies and a reputation that's barely hanging on?" Will's eyes narrowed. "My reputation is just fine, thank you, and I don't need to justify my career to you or anyone else." But Jennifer kept pushing. "You know what I think? I think you're scared. Scared that people are finally seeing through the act. The whole Fresh Prince thing, the nice guy image, it's all just that, an image. And now that it's cracking, you don't know what to do." The audience was dead silent now. This had gone far beyond awkward. This was cruel. Will leaned forward, his voice low but firm. "You don't know anything about me. You don't know what I've been through, what I've sacrificed, what I've built. And you certainly don't have the right to sit there and tear me down for your own entertainment." Jennifer crossed her arms, a smug expression on her face. "I have every right. This is my show, and if you can't handle a few tough questions, maybe you should have stayed home." Will stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Tough questions? Is that what you call this? You're not asking questions, Jennifer. You're trying to humiliate me, and I won't be a part of it." Jennifer's eyes flashed with something that looked almost like satisfaction. "Oh, so now you're going to walk out? That's real mature. That's what a true professional does, right? Just runs away when things get a little uncomfortable?" Will shook his head, a sad smile on his face. "Uncomfortable? This isn't uncomfortable, Jennifer. This is disrespectful. This is beneath both of us. I came here in good faith, and you've turned this into a circus." He started to remove his microphone, his movements deliberate and calm despite the storm clearly raging inside him. Jennifer wasn't done yet. "You know what your problem is, Will? You can't handle criticism. You've been coddled for so long, praised for so long, that you forgot what it's like to be challenged. And now, when someone actually holds up a mirror, you fall apart." Will paused, the microphone in his hand. He looked at Jennifer with an expression that was equal parts disappointment and disbelief. "A mirror? You think that's what this is? You're not showing me anything except your own insecurity. You're sitting there, trying to make yourself feel important by tearing someone else down. That's not journalism. That's not entertainment. That's just sad." The audience let out a collective breath. Some people started to clap, but stopped when they realized it might make things worse. Jennifer's face flushed red. "Excuse me? You're going to sit there and psychoanalyze me? On my own show?" Will placed the microphone on the chair. "I'm not sitting anywhere. I'm leaving. And I suggest you take a long look at why you felt the need to do this today. What were you trying to prove? That you could break me? That you could get a reaction? Congratulations, you got it. But at what cost?" Jennifer stood up too, her voice rising. "The cost? You're the one walking off my set like a child. You're the one who can't handle a real conversation." Will turned to face her fully, his voice steady, but filled with emotion. "This wasn't a conversation. From the moment I sat down, you had an agenda. You wanted to attack me, to make me look small, to boost your own ratings maybe. I don't know what your motivation was, and honestly, I don't care. What I do know is that I deserve better than this. Everyone deserves better than this." He started walking toward the exit, his steps measured and controlled. Jennifer called after him, her voice sharp and demanding. "If you walk out that door, Will Smith, don't think you can come back. Don't think you can just leave and everything will be fine." Will stopped at the edge of the stage, turning back one last time. "I don't want to come back, Jennifer, and everything won't be fine. Not for me, because I wasted my time here. And not for you, because you just showed everyone watching exactly who you are." Jennifer's voice took on a mocking tone. "Oh, please, spare me the moral high ground speech. You think you're so much better than everyone else, don't you? You think because you've been famous for decades that you can just waltz in here and demand respect without earning it?" Will's eyes widened in disbelief. "Without earning it? I've spent my entire career treating people with dignity. I've worked hard. I've stayed humble. I've tried to be a positive force in this industry. What have you done to earn the right to treat me this way?" Jennifer laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the studio. "I don't need to earn anything. This is my platform, my show, my rules, and if you don't like it, there's the door." Will nodded slowly, a look of understanding crossing his face. "You're absolutely right. It is your show, and that's exactly why I'm leaving. Because I won't give you the satisfaction of sitting here while you try to destroy me for your audience's amusement." As he walked away, Jennifer shouted after him, "Running away, just like I said you would. Can't take the heat, can you, Will? Can't handle someone who doesn't worship the ground you walk on?" Will didn't turn around this time. He kept walking, his head held high, his dignity intact despite everything that had just happened. Then the audience didn't know how to react. Some people looked angry, others looked uncomfortable, and a few looked like they wanted to applaud Will for standing up for himself. Jennifer stood there in the middle of her stage, breathing hard, her face red with anger and something else. Embarrassment, maybe, or the realization that she had just made a terrible mistake. But she wasn't backing down. "Fine, leave. We don't need you anyway. This show will go on just fine without Will Smith and his ego." But the studio didn't feel fine. The crew members were whispering to each other. The audience was murmuring, and the whole energy of the room had shifted into something dark and uncomfortable. One of the producers rushed onto the stage, trying to salvage the situation, but the damage was already done. Will reached the backstage area, where staff members stood frozen, unsure of what to say or do. He didn't stop to talk to anyone. He didn't need to explain himself. His actions had spoken louder than any words could. He had drawn a line, stood up for his self-worth, and refused to be disrespected, no matter who was doing the disrespecting or what platform they had. Back on the stage, Jennifer was trying to regain control. Well, that was dramatic, wasn't it, folks? I guess some people just can't handle honest conversation anymore. They want everything sugar-coated, everything easy. But that's not what we do here. Here, we ask the real questions, even if they make people uncomfortable. But her words rang hollow. The audience wasn't buying it. They had seen what happened. They had watched her attack a guest who came in good faith, who tried to maintain his composure. Isao, who only left when it became clear that there was no having a respectful dialogue. This wasn't honest conversation. This was ambush television, and everyone in that room knew it. One audience member stood up and walked out. Then another. Then a few more. Jennifer's eyes darted around the room, watching her audience literally leave, and for the first time since the interview started, she looked uncertain. "Where are you going? We still have a show to finish." But people kept leaving. Not everyone, but enough that it was noticeable. Enough that it was significant. They had come for entertainment, not for cruelty. They had come to see their favorite stars, not to watch them get torn apart by a host who seemed more interested in creating controversy than having genuine conversations. In the hallway outside the studio, Will was surrounded by his team. His publicist was on the phone. His manager was asking if he was okay. His assistant was getting his things together. But Will just stood there, taking deep breaths, processing what had just happened. "I can't believe she did that," his publicist said, shaking her head. "I've never seen anything like that in all my years in this business." Will finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. She wanted a moment. She wanted something that would go viral, something that would get people talking. Well, she got it, but not the way she wanted. His manager put a hand on his shoulder. "You handled that with more grace than most people would have. You stood up for yourself without losing your cool. That says everything about who you are." Will smiled sadly. "I didn't want it to go that way. I really didn't. I came here ready to laugh, to share stories, to connect with people. But I couldn't let her treat me like that. I couldn't sit there and pretend it was okay." Back in the studio, Jennifer was trying to continue with the show, but it was falling apart. The next segment felt forced. The energy was gone, and even she seemed to realize that something had gone terribly wrong. She kept glancing at the empty chair where Will had been sitting, as if she couldn't quite believe he had actually left. During a commercial break, her producer approached her with a worried expression. "Jennifer, we need to talk about what just happened." Jennifer waved him off. "It's fine. It'll blow over. People will forget about it in a week." But her producer shook his head. "I don't think so. This was bad. Really bad. Till you crossed a line." Jennifer's defensive walls went up immediately. "I was doing my job. I was asking tough questions. That's what journalists do." The producer looked at her seriously. "No, that's not what you were doing. You were attacking a guest. There's a difference between tough questions and personal attacks, and you know it." Jennifer turned away, her arms crossed. "He's a big star. He can handle it." But even as she said it, she didn't sound convinced. Because deep down, she knew the truth. She had let her own ego, her own need to be seen as tough and uncompromising, override basic decency and respect. She had treated a guest poorly, and now she was facing the consequences. The show ended early that day. There was supposed to be another guest, Another segment, but Jennifer called it off. The energy was too fractured, the mood too sour. As the audience filed out, they talked amongst themselves about what they had witnessed. Some defended Jennifer, saying celebrities needed to be challenged, but most felt uncomfortable with how far she had pushed, how personal she had made it. Will left the building through a side entrance, avoiding the main doors where fans and photographers might be waiting. He didn't want to make this bigger than it already was. He didn't want to turn this into a media circus. He just wanted to go home, decompress, and move on with his life. In his car, he sat in silence for a moment, just breathing. His phone was already blowing up with messages from friends, colleagues, other celebrities who had heard what happened. Everyone was asking if he was okay, offering support, expressing disbelief at Jennifer's behavior. He turned off his phone and looked out the window at the city passing by. He thought about all the interviews he had done over the years, all the hosts he had sat across from, all the conversations he had had. Some had been challenging, some had asked difficult questions, but none had ever felt like what happened today. None had ever felt so deliberately cruel. He thought about Jennifer too, wondering what had motivated her to act that way. Was she under pressure to create dramatic moments? Was she trying to establish herself as a hard-hitting interviewer? Was there some personal issue he didn't know about? He would probably never know the answers to those questions, and in a way, it didn't matter. What mattered was that he had stood up for himself, that he had refused to participate in his own humiliation. And as the car drove through the streets, Will felt a mix of emotions. Anger at how he had been treated, sadness that a potentially good conversation had turned into something ugly, but also pride. Pride that he had maintained his dignity, that he had drawn a boundary, that he had shown that even someone as famous and successful as him deserved basic respect. He knew this moment would follow him. People would talk about it, analyze it, have opinions about it. Some would say he was too sensitive, that he should have laughed it off or fought back harder. Others would praise him for walking away, for refusing to engage with toxicity. But at the end of the day, he knew he had made the right choice for himself. He had protected his peace, his self-respect, and his values. The car pulled up to his house, and Will got out slowly, on feeling emotionally exhausted. His family greeted him at the door, already knowing something had happened from the news alerts and social media posts starting to circulate. They hugged him, asked if he was okay, offered comfort without needing all the details. He told them the story, from beginning to end, and they listened with a mix of anger and support. They were angry on his behalf, angry that someone had treated him that way, but also proud that he had handled it with such grace. They reminded him of who he was, of all the good he had done, of all the people he had inspired over the years. One bad interview didn't change any of that. Meanwhile, back at the studio, Jennifer sat in her dressing room alone. The makeup was coming off, the lights were dimming, and the reality of what had happened was starting to sink in. Her phone was also blowing up, but her messages were different. They were from network executives, from her own team, from public relations people trying to figure out how to handle the situation. She replayed the interview in her mind, hearing her own words echo back to her. She had gone too far. She knew it even as it was happening, but she couldn't seem to stop herself. There was something about having Will Smith sitting across from her, someone so beloved and successful, that triggered something in her. Maybe it was jealousy. Maybe it was a desire to prove herself. Maybe it was something else entirely. But whatever it was, it had led her to make a serious mistake. She thought about the audience members who had walked out. She thought about the look on Will's face when he finally decided to leave. She thought about the disappointment in her producer's voice. And for the first time since it all happened, she felt genuinely bad about it. Not just worried about the consequences for her career, but actually remorseful for how she had treated another human being. But it was too late to take it back. The words had been spoken, the damage had been done, and now both of them would have to live with the aftermath. Will would be fine, she knew. He had decades of goodwill built up, a loyal fan base, and a track record of professionalism. But what about her? What would this moment define about her and her show? She looked at herself in the mirror, still in her show outfit, and barely recognized the person looking back. When had she become someone who thought it was okay to attack a guest like that? When had ratings and controversy become more important than basic human decency? These were questions she would have to wrestle with in the days and weeks to come. As night fell, both Will and Jennifer were in their respective spaces, processing the same event from very different perspectives. Will was surrounded by love and support, secure in the knowledge that he had done the right thing. Jennifer was alone with her thoughts, beginning to understand the weight of her actions. The interview that was supposed to be just another segment on just another show had become something much bigger. A moment that revealed character, tested boundaries, and showed that even in the entertainment industry, there were lines that should not be crossed. The studio lights were all off now. The audience was long gone, and the set sat empty and quiet. But the impact of what happened in that space would ripple outward, sparking conversations about respect, about power dynamics in interviews, about what entertainment should and should not be. It would make people think about how we treat each other, especially when cameras are rolling and the whole world is watching. Will Smith had walked onto that set as a guest, expecting courtesy and conversation. He left as someone who had been tested and had passed that test with dignity intact. Jennifer Hudson had started the show as a host in control of her domain. She ended it as someone who had let that control become cruelty, and who would now have to face what that meant for her, her show, and her future in the industry,